right, the clock tells me it is 6 o'clock, so welcome everybody. I'd like to call us to order. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws 1985, Section 30-4-80-E, the following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: the Herald, the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. I'd like to ask you please to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Frateroli will be joining us in just a few minutes. He knew he was going to be late, but we're going to go ahead and get started. You've all received a copy of the agenda. Were there any adjustments or corrections? No, ma'am. All right, then that will stand as presented. We have two sets of minutes to approve that were in the materials. I'll start with February 1st. Were there any adjustments or corrections there? No, ma'am. All right, those will stand as presented. And then also on February the 15th. Nope. Any adjustments or corrections there? Good to go. All right. We have got some exciting special recognition for the next few items. So, Dr. Epps, I will turn that over to you.
Dr. Waiters, are you, is Mike in there?
There he is.
There he is, okay. Before you get started, let me just tell, since we got several members of the public here tonight, this is the fun part of our work when we recognize, the board recognizes students for achievements, either state or national winners. And tonight we've got several of those, almost, and this is something a little different than the first two, but I'm gonna let Dr. Wakes, if he gets through talking to Chris. Okay, come on.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. As Dr. Epps mentioned, we have a lot of great celebrations to do this evening. So first, we are going to recognize students from Catawba Ridge High School in the Digital Art and Design class, and I'm going to ask their teacher, Carly Pierce, to come up and recognize the students.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. We have two designers that are here today, and they are outstanding young women and fantastic students, and they created the Program of Studies brochure cover design for 2022. So Catherine Mann is our first designer, and she worked with her partner, also Emma Pelipanuk. I say that wrong every time, I'm sorry. I got close. And they work together, and I'm so proud of them.
She was too fast for you.
And also, I'd like to congratulate their teacher, Carly Pierce, for running a wonderful program at Catawba Ridge.
Dr. Wakesness, I'm not, if you said this, I missed it while I was making some notes. This program of studies that we give to all of our students is, I mean, I know I refer to it on a regular basis. And so having designed the cover and the materials in that is exciting. It's getting used by all of our high school students at all three of our schools. So thank you.
Okay, our next set of honorees come from an amazing program who continue to make us proud. Colonel McKay and the JROTC program at Nation Forward, and he's got several students we're going to recognize tonight. Colonel.
Thank you, Dr. Epps, and thank you, school board members, for in the center, for recognizing some of our cadets from the Nation Forward rifle team. Just real quick. These are 5 of our cadets. We took 14 to the national championships in Phoenix, Arizona. 3 different teams. The teams finished 1st, 3rd, and 6th in the nation. All 3 teams have advanced to the all-service national championships, where the top teams from the Army, Navy, and Air Force will compete against the Marine Corps. We've won the Marine Corps National Championships 7 years in a row. We've won the All-Service Championships, I think it's 3 years in a row. So we plan to go up to Camp Perry and win it again. The tall cadet there that's holding that white piece of paper, that's Cadet Kyle Orr. He broke one of our previous cadets' national champion or national records in standing, 189 points and 9 inner tens. And Levi Carlson set it back in 2015, 189 and 6 inner tens. So congratulations to Kyle Orr. And what else I want to say? Yeah.
Nice job.
Okay. Photos? Come on up, take some photos. Yeah. This happens to be our 46th national team title, and you're probably wondering, how could you have 46 national championship team titles in such short number of years? Because there's a lot of different organizations that hold national championships. The NRAs, the Junior Olympics, the American Legion, the Marine Corps JLTC, the U.S. Army Junior National Championships. We have won all of those numerous times, and there's a few others. So yeah, these are all great athletes. They were just at school practicing, and then they changed into the dress uniform to be here. So, okay, Dr. Epps, thank you very much.
Got some more, well, wait a minute. Do you ever get tired of this? It's like Alabama football, you know. Is it boring?
It's a good thing. It's a
Okay,
good
it's
thing.
a good thing. Well, you want to help me do this?
Okay, sure.
Okay. We're all trying to catch on now.
Just hold it. Act like you know each other.
We'll see you again soon. There's some very regular attendees at these recognitions.
Yes, they are.
Our next item is public participation. Ms. Pettis, do we have any cards?
Hi. Welcome.
Welcome. Just a second. Get situated.
Always does.
All right, we have one card for public participation, so if Katie Rose Noto would like to come on up, you'll have up to 5 minutes to address the board on any programs or concerns or comments that you have.
I don't think anybody wants me talking for 5 minutes, but that's okay.
If you'll start by introducing yourself, your name and address, please.
I most definitely will. You have my address on the card, but my name is Catherine Noto. Katie Rose is how I'm known by most people, and I'm here to address the board. I really didn't want to come tonight. Got to be completely honest with you. I have been going back and forth with the Fort Mill School District probably since 2015. I don't know why you all make it so hard. I don't know why you can't be on the same side with parents when it comes to our children. But unfortunately, like all school districts, it's always a fight. So what I'll do is I will say I am Katie Rose. I am the president of a nonprofit organization. I am a certified parent partner specialist. I am an advocate. My nonprofit is called Attached Families. I advocate for families all day, every day. It's all I do. I am a proud member of Moms for Liberty, but my most important title is self-given, and it's Mama Bear, and don't mess with my kids. So here I am in Mama Bear role, honest to God, because no matter what I do, it is a fight. And I am lied to, and when I prove the lie, I never get an apology. I don't know why. And then Fort Mill School District, whichever school it is, just ups the ante of intimidation and threats. And I'm tired of advocating for my kids just to be intimidated and threatened. So we'll start with line number 1 of just this year, that it was against the policy for my son to just go back to Fort Mill after hospitalization. I asked, I can't even tell you, but double digits, what the policy was for medically fragile children who are hospitalized. I asked that question over and over and over again in emails and phone calls for probably 5 to 6 weeks without it ever being answered. I got responses to my emails about all different things, but not that answer. I met with someone I respect greatly, greatly, and that is Mr. Gray Young. And we talked about the situation. And he then told me that there wasn't a policy for medically fragile children. Why 6 weeks just to be told that? Because all I wanted to know is what's the policy for medically fragile children that are hospitalized that return to school so that I can compare it to mentally fragile children that have to be hospitalized. I wanted to see if medically fragile and mental health was being treated the same way, only to find out there was no policy. So the policy I was asking to see for 6 weeks didn't exist. Why not just tell me that? So Mr. Gray Young said that he would look into the matter of working on policy, and I trust that he is. But that's number one. That's where we started. Then I asked for a meeting to amend my child's.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I'm gonna
Is the
ask you
time going to stop?
Nope, the time we'll add a few seconds. I just want to make sure we're not going to mention names during this discussion.
No. I just wanted to make sure that I applauded him. No.
I understand.
I would never. The time is still going.
We'll
we'll give
add,
you your
we'll
time
add.
back.
Keep going.
Okay. I applaud Gray Young. So that's. I thought you could at least say it in an acknowledgement of kindness
And I appreciate
and
that.
respect. Okay. Like, it was like 140 something, just want everybody to know. Okay. So I asked for my son's IEP to be amended back to him not being permitted to use technology. We just recently had it taken out. I was kind of forced into the takeout. I didn't feel comfortable with it, but the IEP meeting assured me that it could easily be put back in if the problems that my son has continued. My children are trauma children. They have a lot of special needs, we'll say it that way. They can easily be sexually trafficked. They can meet people online. They don't even understand what's happening. I have to keep them safe, and so does the school. The district is responsible for keeping them safe. I bought and paid for every single thing I could think of technologically to stop my son from putting himself in harm's way. I then contacted the school and asked that we switch from our own home laptops to your Chromebooks because I figured the school had more protections, and it still happened. So I said, okay, he can't be safe. I need a meeting to amend this. And I was told, well, that's a team decision. You can't decide that. And I was like, well, that's not what you said when we took it out. It's not what you said. And then I said, and I have proof because I recorded the meeting. That's when I was told I broke the law and criminal charges and everything could be pressed against me because this is a one-party state and for consent, and I didn't get any of their consent. At which point I had to explain to them the law, actually, and show them the law and ask for an apology for the intimidation tactic that I would go to jail, and weeks refused to apologize for the intimidation and threat and apologize for their misunderstanding of the law. Then, just like I said, it's like clockwork, I said, watch, the next thing they'll try to do is intimidate me from speaking to the board by questioning my residency. And what happened this morning, day of board meeting, I get an email questioning my residency and wanting me to show proof because my residency lease expired on December 31st of 2021. At which point I immediately responded and said, check again. It did not. Number one. And number two, I said this would happen. This is intimidation and threats. So she wanted me to provide her with the copy. And I said, well, since I already provided it to 15 people, I'm pretty sure you can find one. And I'm sure you have a copy if you're telling me it expired, right? I will show every member of the board here right now the screenshot of it on my phone. It did not expire. So how about we stop with the lies, threats, and intimidation, and we all come together on the same side of children? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 5 on our agenda is a special report from the Fort Mill History Museum on a proposal
Well,
of some
it's,
sort.
actually, that's my mistake. It's not a proposal. David Ward's here who, David, what exactly is your title on the History Museum Board? Are you the executive?
I'm the chair of
You're the
chair of the Fort Mill History Museum Board.
Okay, great. And David called me a couple of months ago with this idea, proposal at the time, and I thought it was great. And we've already got it going with at the three high schools, but I'm gonna let David talk a little bit about it and explain it to everybody.
Yes, I'm David Ward, a grateful product of the Fort Mill school system, the class of '76, the bicentennial year. So this is my first appearance before the board. This is a long way from being appearancing in Mr. Waltzer's office. So this is a lot more comfortable. I'm just telling you, it's a lot more.
You weren't that kind of.
I was always with the other guy, you know. But I am very appreciative of having this time. Let me first, before I get started, let me introduce Christia Humberg right here. She's the Fort Mill History Museum's executive director, and I appreciate all the support and the guidance that she does for the Fort Mill History Museum. I wanted to, before I deliver my presentation, I did want to, since this is again the first time I've been in front of you guys, I did want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for the school board. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank the teachers. I want to thank the support staff, because I know not just what's been going on the last 2 years, but what you guys have been doing for a long time. I just appreciate the excellence that you continue. And so I just wanted to give a heartfelt thank you to each one of you guys for that. Let me talk about the Fort Mill, and I wish I could have got a longer title here. The Fort Mill History Museum Board of Directors High School Representative Program. And I do appreciate Dr. Epps' guidance on helping out with this, and I do appreciate high school principals Scroggs, Chandler, and Wilson from each of the high schools for giving the support of this. The High School Representative Program continues the strong partnership that we've got, that the museum has with the school. There's a lot of examples where we have relationships where we're working together and been working. So this is just another one of those ties that gives us another reason for us as far as the partnership that we've had. Let me give you the highlights of this program. The highlights are that there's a junior from each of the high schools. So we have 3 juniors that are selected, and they're selected by the school. They're not selected by the representatives of the museum. So each of these representatives serve a 1-year term, and it starts in January of the student's junior year and continues through the December of their senior year. So that's kind of the time window that we're talking about. The representative attends the board meetings, the Fort Mill History Museum board meetings, as an ex officio member of our board. And as far as they also are requested to attend any ad hoc meetings that we may have. Again, the reason that we would have an ad hoc meeting is to be able to get a younger person's perspective on events, exhibits, things that are going on. The program has also been designed with a sustainability element, meaning the way that we laid it out and we designed it, we have the folks that are currently in those roles will also, in about the October timeframe, will help with the transition of the 3 new ones that are coming in. And that was intentional, because like anything else, you want to start something, you want to make sure that you have that sustainability to drive it out. And it's a good way to hand off the baton and everything like that. So we held the first meeting was last Tuesday. And I'm telling you, it was just great just being there with folks more my age, you know, instead of some of these older folks that are at the museum, you know. It was nice having that perspective. It was very, you could just feel the energy. We threw out a couple of things, and it was just fun having them together. So let me introduce the class of 2022, the Fort Mill History Museum's Board of Director High School representatives. And I don't think that, I know Trio, one of them had told me that they couldn't be there. I don't think any three are here. But let me say, Trio Belton Jr. is our representative from Catawba Ridge. Olivia Deere is our representative from Fort Mill. And Shelby Wilkie is our representative from Nation Ford. My point of contacts that I worked with, and I do appreciate them, along, like I said, with the principals, was for Fort Mill was Zach Bean. With Nation Ford, it was Dawn Lisk. And with Catawba Ridge, it was Christy Hill. So I'm thankful that this program got started. I'm thankful that because it provides a venue for the museum to obtain, again, that youthful perspective. It also gives these students a prime time to be able to add to their college applications by serving on this board. So let me just give you the real quick as far as the overall highlights to the of the program. Well, the key benefits, there's really, and I want to read them, there's 5 of them. One is it engages youthful community members to influence the direction and deliverables the museum provides to the community. Number 2, it provides young people the opportunity to gain invaluable experience as they serve their community in a worthwhile and innovative manner. Number 3, it instills ownership to the continued operation and services of the museum to ensure, again, going back to long-term sustainability. Number 4, it allows a cross-generational dialogue to ensure the museum's activities, exhibits, and presentations are appealing and informative for all ages. The last one, it contributes to the museum staying abreast and participating in social media platforms, venues, and applications. So that is pretty much the overall gist of the program. Before I do have one other topic that I want to bring up, but before I do that, I'd like to, if there's any questions or comments or anything from anybody.
Is this the inaugural year?
This is the inaugural year, yes.
I'm just curious, the criteria for selecting students, is it based on an interest in history or?
We didn't, that would be a strong factor. However, we didn't want to put anything, that's why we really went back to the schools to say, who would be a good leader? Who would be somebody that would be outspoken, that would be a participative? But again, having the history touch is always a plus, and the folks that we've selected do have that. So that's it's not a requirement, but it sure is a desired one.
And you mentioned social media. Are they, in addition to participating on the board, perhaps helping establish or expand your social media presence?
Yes. In fact, Christy had just got through. We brought on a new, actually our communications coordinator, who's responsible for our social media, be it all of the venues, our website, our newsletters, our communication, our e-blast, and all like that. But that's what I like about this is, because you can take it from one angle, but when you throw something out there, you get a whole different perspective from a different group, and that, like I said, that's where that energy comes from. It was very enlightening. Any other questions? Okay, the one thing that I just want to do as a historian for the great town of Fort Mill, because the one thing that I didn't say, I am a forever Fort Mill, lived here my whole life, planning on dying here, but maybe hopefully not tonight. But
Please not. Please not.
well, that's what we were talking about earlier. But so, being a historian, I wanted to bring 3 school-related history tidbits for you guys. Number 1, the creation of the Fort Mill School District. As reported in the January 1st, 1890 Yorkville Enquirer. Now, the Yorkville Enquirer is the newspaper from York. York was known as Yorkville before it was known as York. So the newspaper, the Yorkville Enquirer. Here it is. This is the statement that was in there. The Fort Mill School District was created to establish a special school district in York County to be known as the Fort Mill School District, and to authorize the levy and collection of a local tax therein. So that's fact number one. Number two, you folks are carrying on a legacy here. As elected trustees of the Fort Mill School District, you are part of that legacy that started actually in May of 1911. That was when the first elected Board of Trustees was formed. Prior to that point, it was an appointment. It wasn't an election. There was actually an act from the Columbia that required school trustees, school boards to be elected, not appointed. So you guys are carrying on the legacy. It's what, 111 years now? It's pretty good. Okay, now this is a fun one here. Of course, all these are fun. I like. But if back in 1913 you saw this title in the local newspaper, because this was the title, "School Hack Arrives," what would you think "School Hack Arrives" would mean in 1913? And before you hurt yourself, I'll go ahead and jump.
A new teacher or a new principal.
Okay, I heard a new teacher. Getting close here. Let me read what it is. The Big Hack, okay, and this was in the September 25th, 1913 Fort Mill Times. The Big Hack, which is to be used daily in conveying the pupils of the Gold Hill School from Flint Hill Church to the schoolhouse, arrived in town Saturday afternoon. The school hack was manufactured by the Rock Hill Buggy Company. The hack is of an extra size with the seats running lengthwise of the covered body and has a capacity of 30 pupils. Now, like I said, I was in the class of 76. We did not ride in a hack. I think Chuck's class did ride in a hack.
Interesting tidbit. My daddy was born in 1913 in Fort Mill, so he may have been on that hack. I don't know.
Well, I know he had a hack for a son there. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, I really appreciate you guys letting me have a little bit of time, and I'm really appreciative of this partnership again that's been going with us. I appreciate, like I said, Dr. Epps. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the principals and everybody that supported this and everything like that. And I look forward to a long and prosperous relationship. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Dave, just a little more history, and I'm not sure I'm exactly, I wouldn't bet the house on this, but I think we were formed, I know this part's true, in 1951. Prior to 1951, like Gold Hill was a school district, Fort Mill was a school district. There were 1,600, if my memory serves me right, school districts throughout South Carolina, 1,600. And it was all every little nooks and crannies. York County split into 4 in the early 50s, and I remember Kelly McKinney did some research for us and found it several years ago. And the other 3, I think, formed right before we did. So we must have been pretty rural, kind of out in the yonder. You know, you had York was the county seat, Yorkville, I guess. Rock Hill was booming, and I don't know what size Clover would have been, but apparently we were kind of out in the country at one time between Charlotte and Rock Hill, basically. But I think just the fact we were formed in 1951 as the current school district. And it is my hope that when I die, we're still 4 school districts in York County, although there's people that would like to see that done otherwise. But I think that allows these 7 people to give the proper attention to our area as opposed to a larger area, which, and I think that everything reflects that attention, the quality of the staff, the quality of the programs, the building, the taxpayers agreeing to pay for quality facilities. I think it's all, that's why Fort Mill is what it is, and that's why I think we're better served to be set up in a school district of, single districts in the county. That's my 2 cents.
That's good.
Well, and they said it in 1890, special district in Fort Mill. I wrote that down, y'all. I really did.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't trip on your hack on the way out.
Right? Mine's on the other side.
All right. Item 6, staff reports. Our first one is financial impact funding updates. Ms. Moore? Lourdes.
Yes, I have a lot to talk about tonight. Good evening. I'll start with the monthly financial report. And like David, this is kind of neat tonight. I'm also a proud product of the Fort Mill School District. He's making me feel a little younger, even though I'm having a birthday tomorrow. But yes. So the monthly financials are for the 7th month in our fiscal year, January 31st. Total revenues were $119,754,929. Expenditures $93,708,457. So I'm happy to report for the first time this fiscal year we were in the positive cash flow. Much relief on my part. To the good of $26,046,472. January tax collections were strong. They were good. As I reported to you at the prior meeting, we had a situation this year where those taxpayers who escrowed their monthly taxes and their mortgage, that file did not come in from the vendor, the primary vendor, to the county until the first week of January versus the end of December. So we were waiting to see what January brought in with tax collections. So we were very pleased to see that. To date, well, through January, we collected approximately $56 million of our $61 million budget in property tax collections. I ran, as I do every year this time of year, I ran that number out for February through June based on what we collected, which is primarily vehicle taxes, some delinquents. I ran that out through June 30th as an estimate, and I think we could potentially be to the good about $1.5 million over our $61 million budget. So we're still in the 90-something, I didn't run that number, percent of closeness on that budgeted number. So, but very, very positive and very glad to see that came in as we had estimated in the budget. Real estate taxes were $27.5 million. Fee and lieu were $6.7 million. And once again, vehicle taxes were $1.1 million. We're at that $800,000 to slightly over $1 million in vehicle taxes monthly. Currently, the fee and lieu, if you look at the detail report, is showing over budget. But I think we discussed this in a prior meeting that sometimes a company will have paid the full amount and then they will submit the documentation for a refund back. So I'm happy to see that, but I'm not counting on that yet in my estimate of where we may be at June 30th. That is all I have on the monthly financials. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and then we'll go on to impact fees.
I do have a question.
Okay?
So this is, let's see here, it's more of a fixed cost. It appears to be that way, but what is homestead exemption?
Okay, so there are a couple pieces of what I call kind of smaller tax revenue that you'll see on our monthly reports. And homestead is one that started years ago, but it is a South Carolina law that exempts the first $50,000 in value for those homeowners who are age 65. It also exempts if you are totally or permanently disabled or legally blind. As many things as South Carolina tax law has evolved over the years, when the tax law changes, there are certain pots of money that the state holds those districts or holds entities harmless. This was one of them because, as you know, we're now into a complete tax exemption on school operating taxes with Act 388 that came about in 2007. But that small piece of homestead was way back when, and they have kept that amount is fixed. The $551,000 is fixed for the homestead exemption. But it is still active for those taxpayers to apply for that to be exempt on that first $50,000 for other taxes such as county taxes for that. So
Is it only 50,000? I thought it was the first 100,000.
it's only the first. I think there's another 50,000 part that they call Tier 2. There's like three. We call it Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. But it initially started that particular line item is the 50,000. And then tier 2 would be the additional. But it's all fixed amounts that will not change for us, even with the growth.
Got it.
Yeah.
Another question.
Sure.
So last evening, I was with the 7th grade boys basketball team from Pleasant Knoll and was giving out fun facts and yada, yada, yada. But one of the fun facts I gave them was, which is fascinating to me, is us serving 15,000 meals a day.
Yes.
Not a week.
Right.
Not a month.
Right.
A day.
Largest restaurant in Fort Mill.
Yes, that's fascinating to me. However,
That's
I don't
what Tammy
see.
says.
Yes, so I don't see any representation in here. Why wouldn't there be representation?
Correct.
here?
So the monthly financials, this is only the general fund,
Yep.
which is funded primarily through state allocations and property taxes. The student nutrition, food service, cafeteria operations are completely separate. They're what we call an enterprise fund. They're self-funded.
Yep.
And currently, as we like to remind our parents, the federal government has in place free meals, free breakfast, free lunch for all students. There is no income eligibility currently, and that came about with COVID, and the federal government continued that program this year. So we see many of our families taking advantage of that, and we like to keep reminding families that that is available, and to please take advantage of that.
But Leanne, to your point, it's that program, or not the free lunch program, but the nutrition department is a self-funded program.
It is a
So
self-funded
income
program.
and expenses
Are accounted for separately. And probably close to the end of the year, I'll have Tammy Welch come and we'll give you a report on our operations for this year. Prior to the enactment of the free program, we did charge, for those that did not qualify for free or reduced lunch, we did charge a small meal price every year for our operations. But our goal is to break even. Our goal is not profitability. Our goal is to provide the best quality meals, serve the students, and break even in our operations.
Fantastic, thank you.
And
Yes.
I'm assuming we don't know yet about the continuation of that program or whether or not we would go back to charging $2 or
Correct.
$60 or whatever it was for.
I have not heard any updates. So we are very hopeful that that will continue.
Maybe at least another year.
Yeah.
Yes.
One more question.
Sure.
So we just, some of the board members attended the annual conference, which is fascinating for me, being a newbie. But one of the things that's very consistent topic is mental health. And so I came back and I was just curious, looking at some of the details on where that line item would be. Does that fall under psychological services?
Some of it does, yes. It's all within our special services funding codes. But I think that, like a lot of districts, we have definitely increased our funding level and added additional services over the last couple years in these areas for our students. Currently, we do have 16 mental health counselors. We added 2 additional with our ESSER 2 funds, and we added another, Dr. Maziar's added another additional with, it's called ARP Special Services ESSER funds that are separate than the district funds we've reported on. So we've added 3 additional mental health counselors recently in the last 2 years in that area. We've really made an effort in knowing that that was a need of our students. We also have had an initiative to fund school psychologists at all of our schools. So we currently have 22 school psychologists working in that area as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
So, yeah.
We added, was it last year that we added behavioral interventionists?
We've added behavioral interventionists, as well as at the elementary level, we added RBTs, or registered behavior technicians, support positions. So all of those staffing groups within our schools have made a tremendous impact on trying to help these students and recognizing that need to a greater level.
Thank you.
So I don't know yet if you'll see any of those additional requests come through the budget or not. We're starting those discussions.
10-4.
So the next thing I want to talk about is impact fees. On February 24th, we had the largest collection amount to date since this was enacted. We collected $2,788,640. I even that morning emailed staff at York County and said, is this correct? Or is this a typo? And they have confirmed with me that that is correct. After inquiring a little bit more, it was on an apartment complex where several buildings were permitted at the same time.
To that point, yeah, their numbers in their sheet don't tally up quite right.
Their numbers don't, because if you look at the total, you have to look at the individual line and add the units.
Yeah, 260
Yes.
units, and it only shows 45 multifamily.
Correct, yes. That's why I asked them, is the dollar amount right? So that puts us collected to date at $49,329,780. We've collected on 1,860 single-family units and 1,295 multifamily units, and we're now over 3,155 units since July of 2018. Now, that daily collection somewhat sort of messed up our rolling comparable data that I've been giving you. So multifamily is way off now because we've collected 90% more for the 12 months we're in now versus the 12 months last year. But single family, we're still about 37% less, as we have expected with the pandemic and the leveling off somewhat, but we're once again seeing single family homes coming on. But the multifamily or apartments, we're definitely out of whack now on our 12-month averages. But just to remind you, our calendar year 2021 average collection per month was $800,000. February, with this, we collected $3.7 million. So we're going to be off now on our averages, but
Which means we were even high beyond just that one day. We would have been above the average of 800
Correct,
even,
correct.
even if it weren't for all that.
as we've talked about, apartments are so difficult because when something like this happens and they all are paid at one time like this, it kind of throws off your average data. But we'll take the revenue. So,
Someday we'll get to use it.
yes. The next thing I want to touch on is what's going on in Columbia. I think everyone heard the House Ways and Means passed their version of the annual appropriations bill last week. A couple of surprises. One, which was very, very surprising, but we're very happy about, is they increased the teacher salary scale $4,000 per cell.
So it is per cell.
It is per cell. That's an 11.11% cost of living increase for teachers. We're hoping that's fully funded. We're waiting to see on that. Also the teacher supply funds, that's been $275 for several years. They proposed an increase to $300 per teacher on the teacher supply funds. The full House will not debate the bill until the week of March 14th, but we are hoping, as school business officials across the state, we're waiting to get the House Ways and Means version by district so we can actually see our numbers, because the governor's funding plan proposal also passed, and we are hearing is picking up speed rapidly in Columbia. It is a major change from the current EFA funding. And basically what it does is it takes a state pot of money that is supposed to equal a pupil-teacher ratio of 11.2 to 1. And it takes that amount of money and it divides it out among the districts with several factors, one being your weighted pupil units, which one of the key pieces of weighted pupil units is the poverty weighting went from 0.2 to 0.5. We are the lowest poverty district in the state, so that hurt us. There were also a couple weightings that have been removed that we'll be asking collectively as a group of districts, will be asking to be put back in. There are still a lot of questions about what positions did they include in that 11.2 to 1 ratio. Other than, there are other positions that are paid on a teacher salary scale. Did they include those positions? Is it strictly just classroom teachers? So there's a lot of questions we're trying to get answered in the next couple of weeks.
Leanne,
Sure.
this morning, or maybe this afternoon, I got an email from State Department. Frank Rainwater's going to talk to the superintendents Thursday morning and give us our sheets.
Excellent.
So you want to go with me? You can
I
go.
do want to go with you.
Or I'll-
The projected numbers that you've seen at the conference and that I've seen are based on 1920 data. So they have to bring that forward a year. And so we're asking for them to try to do that as quickly as possible. There's also, we're hearing that they don't want any districts to lose funding. If you look at that data, it is showing 7 districts as losers. We are the greatest loser at 5 million, but that will not be the final number. I hope it's not worse, but that will not be the final number.
And they talked about I'll hold harmless, but only for 1 year.
Right.
And it was 5.5 million.
I have had communication with our Representative Ray Felder. She is also partnering up with some of the other loser districts to, I don't want to say fight this, but to emphasize the importance that no districts lose funding with this. Those numbers that you've seen also do not include the House Ways and Means put in an additional $227 million to fund the 4,000 teacher salary increase. So those numbers haven't been factored into that data as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces still on this. There's really not anything that I can do as far as projecting revenue until some of these things get answered and we actually get the data for our district.
Remind us the timeline of things that you're expecting again.
Well, the House is going to debate the budget the week of March 14th, and they are to print the appropriations bill for them to review 1 week ahead. So we are hoping by the end of next week, possibly, we could see that information. There's just a lot of work to be done, as Dr. Epps mentioned, from Frank Rainwater's office to bring that forward and update it. But the hold harm, well, they put in the additional $100 million to aid those 7 districts that are losers would take another $18 million. But the argument is if you're going to put in $100 million, put in the $118 million. So we'll continue to follow that and update you. This is just a major funding change as to how we do things now. And when we asked the question, what brought this about so quickly as well, this is their idea to simplify it, to make it more understandable. So we'll keep you informed as we continue going through this in the next couple weeks.
Did you hear anything with regard to the health plan?
Yes. So that was the other.
Is that a typo?
I asked the same question.
I'm waiting
I
for the
asked the
answer.
same question. So the House Ways and Means made an amendment to a proviso amendment. Instead of increasing the original plan, the way I understand it was to increase the employer health premium contribution 0.8%. They have proposed to increase it 18.1%. So from 0.8 to 18.1%.
Which is the $5 million that we're in the hole.
Just heard about that late yesterday. We're asking questions. We also, the school business officials have a conference next week, so this will be discussed in detail there as well. So I do not know where that came from. Normally, for our budget purposes, we increase about 3.5%, which is a mid-year increase in January. And it's been, it's covered us. So to have to go to 18.1, we would have to go to 9 mid-year in January, which, there's a lot of things unanswered right now. Any other questions or anything else y'all have heard about the governor's funding plan or?
I hope
No?
to have more for you tomorrow. I'll be in Columbia tomorrow.
Oh, excellent. Please let me know. Okay? Any other questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Next, item 6.02, we've got our first reading for the 23-24 calendar. So while Joe's making his way up, we did last year approve 2 years at a time, right? So we had this one that,
Last.
okay.
Yep.
So next year's calendar, we already,
Yeah, next year's calendar is already set. We will be actually talking about that in a later item, which you're going to see some of that in this item, so it's a little bit backwards, but we'll try to get through that as soon as we can. But yes, we are talking about 23-24 school year, so not next school year, but the following school year. There's a couple of interesting things before we actually look at the calendar that I want to just bring to your attention. Number one, this is the worst year possible for the start date in South Carolina requirement of the third Monday. Essentially, we are starting in the 4th week of August, even though we're starting on the third Monday because the first falls on a Tuesday. There's some issues later in the calendar with the way the calendar patches out. Martin Luther King Day holiday is a week earlier than it traditionally is, so that kind of caused some issues as well too. So fortunately, it is not an election year. That would be the only thing that could make it worse, is if it was an election year and we were required to take election day off. Having said all that, let's take a look at it. What I've done, I've put this in a little bit different format just to look at it here on the slides, so it's a little larger and people can see. The calendar that we've got prepared that we're recommending it for that year, again, as I said, has a start date of August 21st, which is the third Monday in August. We have an out date of May 31st. It is a split semester calendar of 85-95. We know that that's not ideal. Here's the reasoning behind it. We've done 86. We ended up with, I believe, an 85 this year with moving some days around. 86, 87 is usually our target goal. But this calendar offered a lot of challenges, as I said. Specifically, in order to maximize the days to get up to the 85, it kind of fits because we have Christmas falling on a Monday. So we couldn't stretch out any further in that side. That also means New Year's falls on a Monday, and this is where things get a little bit tighter if you're going to carry the semester over. Because of that Martin Luther King date on the 15th, what we would have to do is backdate the winter break starting probably mid that week, around the 21st in December, and then we would be coming back in the midweek on probably the 3rd. To end our break, and students would immediately have to take exams the following 9th, 10th, and 11th at the latest, because we'd have to move that teacher work day to the 12th to roll it over. So it really is a tight schedule coming back in January, with kids truthfully having to take exams right after walking back in the door without a lot of review time. What we generally see when we try to get the longer semester, balanced semester, is that Martin Luther King date is usually at least 2 weeks after we come back, and then we get a full week of class, then we have exams come through. Positives about this calendar, obviously the end date of the 31st of May does not carry us into June for students, which is something we've always tried to work towards. There is breaks throughout it. We don't have any really long periods. For example, if you look at April, spring break is that 1st through the 5th. That is following Easter. Easter is March 31st, and the reason we have it on the week following is because if you moved it back up into March, you would end up with a much longer schedule coming down on that last stretch to get out of school. One thing I want to point out, and we won't go too far into this because we're going to talk about it as our next item on the board agenda, but there you will see the 2-hour early release days. Those are not half days. Those are timed early release days. There are 6 of them scheduled throughout this calendar. Those are designated for teacher planning time only. Not for PD, not for bringing in speakers. They're designated for teacher planning time. That's a big thing that's being discussed in Columbia. It's being discussed here. So those orange days is something you've never seen on a calendar before, and we'll talk about those more, but there are 6 of those spread out through the entire school year. With that being said, I've played a lot of Tetris, so I'm happy to answer your questions at this time.
So just to clarify, we're going to finish the semester before the winter break, right?
Yes, we would finish the semester. Exams would be taken before winter break. That January 5th teacher workday would be when high schools would roll the semester, and they would start fresh in new classes on the 8th.
And that makes sense too, because we have a lot of testing in the spring that we don't have in the fall.
Sure, and that was some of the other considerations that got put into it. We do have some days in the second semester that are not designated really for instruction. They're testing days. There is a higher likelihood for weather issue days after December. We get into January. We've seen them before that, but generally they're more in the after side, and then there are other activities and things that take away from instructional time in that second semester. So really we're saying it's unbalanced, but when you start to figure all of that in, that difference comes a lot closer.
Right, so they're not going to get an additional 10 days of teaching in the spring.
Sure.
Once you pull out those testing dates and some of those other things.
And some of the other things we've heard too, that's always been an issue when we roll the semester over, we've had to balance that versus the instructional needs, but this will benefit our early graduates that are enrolling in school early. They'll be able to actually do that, whereas in past years there's been issues with that, trying to get that done. And honestly and truthfully, the main focus for that, and I'm sure our education people will back this up, is really the high school side. Our elementaries and middles, they're less concerned about when the roll happens because it doesn't really affect them. So really what we're talking about mainly when we roll the semesters and the split is our high school kids.
Having had 4 in high school, we really appreciate that you split this, have the split before winter break, because it really truly is a winter break, not only for the students, but also for the teachers as well.
Yeah, I will say that is usually the largest feedback we get from our families anytime we do calendars is they want to have the exams before the break. Where we don't want to get into is when we're pushing really tight to 82 days or 81 days. Like, then you actually get to a point where if you miss a day, you might not have a semester that meets the legal criteria, which is the 80 days.
Well, and especially, I know in the last 4 years, we've had 1 year, seems like, that we had to do the exams afterwards. I mean, last year, year before, 2 years ago. And at least you had the couple of weeks so that you didn't have to do as much review and cramming over the winter break.
Yeah, I mean, if you think
knew you were
back
gonna
to
have time to get back.
when we first came back to school after the shutdown, because we had such a late start date that got pushed back, we rolled that semester way into January. But even in previous years where we've done this, of course, it's been a long time without COVID since we actually had to do it. But when we do it, we try to give enough time in there for them to come back in class, have proper review, and then do testing. And unfortunately, just because of the way the dates roll out, that does not fit well with this calendar.
Yeah, and an immediate return to exams
Is awful.
would definitely be a big downer on everybody for the break.
Yeah. And again, this is like I said, this is the perfect storm year where everything is pretty much working against us because of the start date, with the exception of it not being an even year and required for election.
Correct itself the next year, Joe?
Yeah, so we'll start to see this get better as the days move forward. The first continues to work its way down. We will have tight calendars for the next couple of years. They won't be able to be balanced perfectly going in. Of course, honestly, truthfully, they're never balanced even when we get the best scenario. And I do think it is important to point out, and for anybody who's watching this or anybody who's looked at the school calendars, if we could start, again, realistically, we're not starting to the 4th week of August. If we could start in the 3rd week of August, which would be close to where we would normally be at, all of that is moot. Everything I just said goes away.
And a couple of years ago, there were some bills that talked about the 15th, right? No earlier than the 15th
Sure,
or something
yep.
like that, which would be enough. But
Yeah, that would get us pretty much right to it. We'd have to figure out the end of the year because there'd be that one little goofy day because if you started the 15th on a Tuesday, but yes, it's very much a shame to put these calendars together thinking of instructional time and testing for students and all that timing, and just know that we're starting a week later than we really could be.
I know I've seen a few districts that have implied that they were doing some form of I forget what they call it, a modified year-round.
Yes.
I've also heard there's been some pushback on,
Yeah, we, several districts are doing the modified. I think they call it modified.
They call it a modified year-round school, and what it does is you're looking at a shortened summer break. It's still usually, I believe it's still around a month and a half, but you see these additional week-long breaks and more days off during the school year.
So what it is, and I think some districts close to us are considering it for 2 years out, probably because of this situation, but we were told at the superintendent's meeting that the legislature is watching this very closely because they're looking at it, you're trying to game the system and start before.
Because
the third
truthfully,
Monday.
they're
So
not
we'll see
adding any
how-
more days.
We'll see how long this is even an option. But what it would do for us, and the reason I'm not leading the charge on it, but we would need a lot of parent input. It's 5 or 6 weeks summer. It's 2 weeks off or a week off in October. I mean, it's very different. Not saying it's bad or good, it's just different. So the community would have to have buy-in. It'd be drastic change right there at first. But anyway.
Yeah, basically you're breaking up your summer and spreading it out through your year, which
the
you know,
Carowinds of the people of the world would be pretty upset if Anthony heard me say that.
And I'm not sure that's something because it came out a couple of years ago, but that's not something we've ever explored. So we haven't really ever gotten any feedback about it or talked about it or anything like that. But
And like I said,
I don't think it's going to be around for long.
I was say I had gotten wind that when it's really only adding 1 week by starting a week earlier and then adding it into October, that doesn't pass the smell test as truly being a year-round.
A year-round school.
Everybody can't go to Disney World the same week in October, I guess. Is what it meant.
Well, but if Columbia's gonna get their knickers in a bunch, I have a solution for them. So while I appreciate your Tetris game, I'm gonna get on my soapbox that you were on, thank you. If they would give us the autonomy to do our calendar appropriately, we wouldn't even be having to have this discussion.
Yes.
But once again, here we sit with the discussion about start date, and I'll be in Columbia in April to have that discussion once again.
Now, that is also, too, every calendar that we put out obviously has the caveat that there are, could be changes. If there are changes done at the legislation side, if there are changes, obviously we have to move days for weather, or we do have, certain circumstances where we move days around. So every calendar, and again, this is 2 years out. This is the other reason why we went to this 2-year out calendar, not only to help our teachers and students plan, but also to give us some flexibility if there are changes that we would be able to make them, long-term.
How many days do you think, you talked about there's days in the second semester that aren't, they're testing. So how many extra of those in the second semester are there generally?
I'll have to probably defer to academics and get back to you on the specific number, but from what we talked about, it's probably in the 4 or 5 range for sure.
That are
three?
That are
3-ish?
three.
Okay.
3 that are extra or 3 that are testing days? Because there's testing days in the fall too.
3 more.
State testing.
Right.
Yeah.
So we think 3 extra.
And there's also ACT days and SAT, so it kind of varies by grade level as well.
2 weeks
Some of
AP
those.
exams.
Yeah, the Tetris that you play is, you've done an amazing job trying to fit priorities, competing priorities into this calendar. I'm not suggesting that this is poor work product at all. It's great work product for what you had to work with. I agree that you want to end the semester before Christmas and you want to get out before Memorial Day. I think that's worked very well. My concern is that it's really not equitable. It really isn't. And everything that I've heard from educators is this is not, we know it's not ideal, but this really isn't equitable. And you're talking about 10 instructional days, maybe it's 7 extra days in that, maybe. But you're talking about days of the week. You're talking about half of a month. That's a long time. It's a lot of time for preparation. I just don't think it's fair for those students, especially in high school, that have a lot less time to prepare. I'd almost favor starting later in August and pushing it back and going into June than
Then you
having
run
this
into
calendar.
another problem, though, because one of the things we always hear about rolling the semester over past January is our AP teachers then get shorted on their instructional time because AP schedule
It's set.
testing is set not by us.
national.
So we have an issue there where all of our AP classes that are net testing on that side
One of the
run into a
arguments
bigger
out of
problem.
Wayne County that pushed this whole agenda.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it's all bad, right? It's all bad. I'm just leaning towards not that different
Sure.
of a number of days.
And again, so that's a kind of consideration that we talked about and we look at. I think the problem there is that then you're talking about which one is more equitable. The having students come back from the break and giving them a very short amount of time from a holiday to turn around and take their exams so that they can get more instructional time that doesn't really help them out. Those 5 days are going to come after January to balance it out. So you're saying these 5 days are going to make it equitable for the second semester, but also in these next 5 days, you need to figure out how to take your exam after coming off a 2-week break. So I think there's some balance there.
Review than instruction time.
Exactly.
Still more time with the teacher. I
Not
lean
really.
towards that. No, it's literally more time with the teacher.
Well, it is, but it's not. And I've lived it because I've had kids that have taken exams before Christmas and I've had kids that have taken exams after Christmas. It's not the same and it's not
I'm not suggesting
equitable.
it's the same.
It's not
None
equitable.
of it's equitable, and I've done it. I always had my exams after Christmas when I was in school. I get what you're saying. I could see either way. I really can.
Come to Columbia with me in April. Let's have a conversation with the people that know
I-
better than us.
I appreciate your advocacy on the issue, Michelle. You know I do.
I know you do.
But I wouldn't be in favor of that much of a difference in days.
Given all of the trade-offs that we've all talked about, most of them, I don't know how much of this has been reviewed with other admin for some of their considerations of is it better to do this or that, or, is this a collective recommendation so far?
Yeah, I mean, from the district admin staff that, in our academic side and, the communication side, I've met with everybody in our departments to come up with this particular version of the calendar, yes. And I'll be honest with you, based on all the feedback that I've received over years and years and years of doing these calendars, this is the one that meets that feedback. But I get it. I've never had a parent come to us and say, yeah, it's not really fair that my kid got less days in the first semester than the second semester. But I've had tons of parents come to us and say, we've got to have those exams before the holiday break. So I think, and again, I'm not an educator myself. I'm not in the classroom. I'm not teaching. I designed this based on the state laws. But from talking with everybody so far, this is what we feel is the best recommendation at this time, unless we can get some changes made.
So tonight is first reading.
Yeah, tonight would be first reading, so the next board meeting would be the proposal.
So we've got the opportunity over the next couple of weeks to solicit additional feedback,
Sure.
share thoughts with you,
Yep.
et cetera, to see if anybody has specific recommendations of changes between now and second reading.
Yep.
And we don't have to approve it at second reading, that's just the earliest that we can, right?
Sure. Yep.
Because we're not voting on anything tonight.
No, not voting on this tonight. This is just for first reading, first display. Yep. All right. Any other questions about this one? I'll just hang out for a little while.
That'd be nice.
I'm next on your agenda.
And keep going. Oh, I'm sorry. It's technically a second item. Our next is item 7.01, which is an action item, because you've got here some proposals of changes to next year's calendar,
Next year's
right?
calendar, yes. Yep. All right, so now we're talking about next school year, the 22-23 school year. Where you saw those orange days in on the other calendar, we're going to look at those for next school year, but we're also seeking approval to add this as a program into the district. And before I actually show the days, I want to really kind of expand a little bit more on what we're doing with this. So we've heard, even pre-COVID, but it got even more important during the COVID situation, that teachers need more planning time. It's even being heard in Columbia. They are considering multiple pieces of legislation that may deal with that may make what we're talking about tonight a moot point if it were to make it out and pass. Now, we don't know if that's the case, so we wanted to go ahead and work with this proposal first, with the caveat that obviously if Columbia were to do something, we would probably have to go back and change it. I know some of the things they've talked about down there is 30 minutes per day, that kind of thing. But what we're looking at here would be adding 2-hour release days. Again, there would be 6 of them in the calendar for next year. We're able to do this because of the excess seat time that we have built into our daily schedule. So we're not adding any time to make this happen. This is already available because we are above the seat time limit or seat time requirements per week in the Columbia legislation. So this again is how we would do this. They are not half days. They are the half days. We get 3 of those a year, and this is not the half day schedule. This is longer than the half day schedule. Again, this is basically just utilizing those extra minutes that we have in place 6 times over the course of a year, and we'll take a look at what we've got for those dates. Again, talking about the times, elementary would be out at 2 p.m., middle would be out 1:10, high school would be out 1:40. That's exactly a 2-hour rollback from where they're traditionally out at. We would be putting these days, they're the orange days. Sorry, the orange and yellow looks very close on this, but I can list them out. September 30th would be the first one. We'd have one in October on the 28th. We would not have one in November because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So what we did was we put one in December 2nd, which essentially is the last week of November coming after the holiday. We have one in January. We have none in February because of the short month, but we did the same thing with March. We added it basically what essentially is the last Friday in February because it's the first week of March. And then we have one in April on the last Friday. We tried to put them either on the last Friday or in the case of March and December, the last Friday of the month prior. So they were nice and spread out through the calendar. They're not stacked up on each other. But again, these days are strictly for teacher planning or collaboration with other teachers. They're not for professional development. This is for teachers' time to work on their instructional materials and with the stuff they need for their class. Again, 6 of them in this calendar, 6 in the one you just saw. Matter of fact, the dates are pretty close to each other, to be honest with you.
I just have a question as I was looking at it just now. Is there any thought to timing them around like the 9-week periods or 6
Yes.
weeks or something like that so that the planning is intentional for, upcoming lessons and things?
There was a little bit of that, but again, that's what the teacher work days are more geared towards. They fit more that calendar. This would be just for strictly planning for where you're at. But honestly, truthfully, if you look where they fall, they fall in pretty close areas.
And when you've got elementary on kind of a different schedule than a middle school schedule, who's on a different schedule than on a high school schedule, that's probably slim chances.
It gets a little tough, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, like I said, if you look at this total, we're adding roughly 12 hours of planning time. Now, granted, that's spread out through a year, but I think teachers would tell you that they could do a lot with that time.
More than they have now.
As you mentioned, as we've been around, and we haven't done it lately, doing school visits and things, this has been the number one teacher request is time to get together with each other and plan and strategize and identify student concerns. I've seen them talk about where they're doing some of the MTSS work, not in that official capacity, but that type of work to talk about how best to address certain challenges, issues, needs, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's the dedication for this time, is for those, school level or grade level teams to get together, individual teachers to work on their stuff. That we didn't want this to just turn into another PD where we bring in speakers or we bring in, training or those types of things. We wanted this to be more classroom based and give that time because that's what we've heard they ask for.
So if we were to look around at all of our principals in the room, this would be sort of off limits for the principals to hold meetings and such, right?
Well, and it's also, it's planning, so it's not, we're gonna get rid of kids early on the 30th. I can schedule a doctor's appointment.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
this is work time. This is not everybody leaves
Right.
when the bell rings at the 1:10, 1:40. or 12 o'clock. It's still a traditional work day for the staff. They'll be working through that time, and that planning will be there. And that goes, I mean, that's obvious for everybody in the building.
But I did notice that you put them on Fridays, which from a parent standpoint, I suspect will be a little bit more beneficial
Yes.
in terms of if you have to leave work early to, earlier than planned, or if you are planning on going out of town or doing something that weekend at least.
Yeah, that was the concession side to the parents, was to try to make this as low impact as possible, and obviously the early Friday afternoons are generally well accepted.
So I have two questions. The first is, did we engage with daycares to kind of run the?
Well, we haven't yet, because we would, that's the next step. We need it
Okay.
approved by you guys first before we go putting it out in the public that we're doing it. So,
Perfect.
but that would be the next step, and we'd have to obviously deal with our after-school programs. There could be some impact to the 4K programs if you're half-day, so we'll have to work through all of those issues if you guys are on board with us adding this.
Yep. And I'm assuming, I know when this was initially discussed about modifications to high school schedules and things, we would probably not interrupt meal service for this either, right?
No, if you look at it, all of the times that we're going on, and I got to confirm this with Ms. Welch, but all of the times should be post-meal time.
Good.
So,
Now, we may have to switch. It might be a bag lunch situation where they go that route or something along those lines like they do, for other days we've had to leave out early. But that, again, that's all stuff we work out on the procedure side.
make a comment about, daycares after school. Would you want to approve it, not knowing if flyers or anybody can accommodate? So the question is the order and the timing of things.
Well, we approve half-days without
Right.
going through that
We
process
approve
first,
our whole
too, so,
calendar without talking to them.
yeah.
What do you think?
I personally feel like they're going to be on board. I mean, it's
I think they generally
they're gonna,
adjust to our schedule.
yeah, they're
In the historical?
I've got a friend that is a
Right.
we'll call it a principal of one of the preschools locally, and she's always, when's your calendar? What are you guys doing about COVID? What are you doing for this?
We've-
Because they're trying to mirror and be us in terms of operation.
Yeah, I think this far in advance, they'll be able to successfully staff
Right.
for those days.
Just worry about those, parents who can't necessarily
About a year.
accommodate, but everybody feels pretty confident that flyers, everybody, okay, non-issue. The second one really is, and I know everybody does, you really talk about a SWOT analysis and threats to education. I have there's two professions in South Carolina and really the nation, I think we really got to pay attention to. And one of those is teachers. I was talking to a professor at a school that educates a lot of our educators, and they're down. We must do anything we possibly can to support teachers in the classroom, as I know everybody here does. And if this is one thing that we can do, right, that helps support those teachers, because the trajectory that we're on, I'm very scared for the state of just getting enough qualified teachers. I know we don't typically have a problem with recruitment, but we may in the next few years if there's just not enough candidates. And I appreciate this effort. I think it's a great idea. And like I said, coming from my standpoint, teachers, we love you. We thank you. If this is just a little bit to know that you're supported in your role, because you're getting hit from a lot of different angles and have been through the ringer more than a lot of professions these last couple of years. So I think it's a great program.
I think a byproduct of that, too, to add on to talking about the supporting the teachers, not only does this support the teachers, but that extra planning time to them directly supports the students in the classrooms. I mean, that's really, so you're hitting it twofold.
There's a correlation.
Yes.
And your topic here came up in several aspects of our conversation. Friday, we had both the branding conversations in the morning and strategic planning in the afternoon, and there are aspects covered in both of those directly targeted toward that issue.
Completely agree. I'm on board. We can vote officially in a minute. My only question is really about mechanics. And not knowing, I mean, what may come out of Columbia where we're required to give a 30-minute a day,
Yeah.
you know, and then would that require us to need to change this again? I'm assuming it probably would.
Yeah, it
or
would.
change our daytimes.
From what I've seen, and I've seen a couple different things proposed, but if they were to, let's say, go with the 30 minutes per day of uninterrupted planning time, then yeah, we would have to move away from this proposal. We wouldn't be able to structure that, you know, and this, because again, part of where this comes from is the excessive or the extra seat time minutes that we have. So we may lose that if we're then figuring in 30 minutes a day in that, because again, it's a weekly period that we're able to count this up. And if you're figuring in an extra, I mean, you would basically be eating that time up with the 30 minutes.
2.5 hours instead of 2 hours.
Yes.
And then, totally different, but in the same vein, when this gets legs, and everybody marks their calendar accordingly, you know, I don't know how big we need to put draft over some of these things, but even like, I see that there's a tentative graduation date, and I know that has been a challenge in the past because we do not know yet what the contract is going to be with Winthrop or wherever. So
Well,
I
and
don't know
we've
how
seen in
to
the past,
stamp
they've
it bigger
done
than these little.
construction or something like that, but
Right.
I mean, it's listed as a tentative
I
date.
know.
The word tentative alone means that it's
It
not
needs
set
to
in
be a bigger
stone.
watermark of some sort
Needs
across
to
it.
be hot pink or something, I don't know.
We do know that Rock Hill and Fort Mill will alternate the Friday.
Yes,
Saturday.
we did meet as a group with Winthrop that we would alternate every other year now with the Friday and Saturday. So this year we have the Saturday. Next year we should be getting the Friday. The calendar we looked at before actually has us out, would be a graduation on a Saturday if that continues. There are some new venues coming online too, and again with improvements and construction projects over at Winthrop with the Coliseum. You know, we were scheduled to be there either last year or the year before, and then they shut it down 2 months before graduation, and we had to make other plans. So there's always things out of our control that are going to change, and there are always things that are in our control to change. We try to minimize those as much as possible, especially when it comes to calendars and days, but we do have to be reactive for that. That's, again, one of the other reasons why this 2-year process, again, it's a look ahead that if everything stays as is, this is what it'll be. And we do have the caveat at the bottom that for whatever reason, there may be changes to the calendar. I can put it in bold. I can't make it flash because it's on a piece of paper, but I can certainly give it a shot.
I'd like it to be bold, please.
Yep.
With that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration to adjust the calendar with 6 early release dates as designated on the calendar for 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation for the newly proposed 22-23 calendar, including the 6 early release days. Is there any further discussion?
Wait. You made a motion to, I thought we were,
I made a motion to amend the calendar that's already been approved for the
Okay, yes.
22-23 school year, adding the 6 early release dates
for the 22-20.
for the 22-23 school year.
Okay.
If I said that wrong,
When we come back next board meeting for the other board meeting, those
we
are
approve
built
that'll be the
in,
other
so it wouldn't be
calendar.
a separate,
different-
it wouldn't be a separate
topic.
vote. It would just be approving the calendar.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No, ma'am.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Starting.
I am done now.
Talking about it. Okay, what do we have next? As a couple of people mentioned, we were at a School Board Association conference, most of us 2 weekends ago. I don't know if anybody has specific highlights you would like to share?
We have highlights.
Yeah, congratulations.
Right.
I was going to actually tell you, Ms. Branning, to compliment the leadership at SBA. I thought the keynote speaker on day 2 was about as perfectly timed with everything that's going on with schools. It was the keynote speaker was a professor at Moorhead College, and he talked a lot about bias and bias that exists. And I thought it was, you could feel that the room was a little bit uncomfortable at times, which was really good, but definitely timely. with what schools are facing from just complaints that we're getting. And I thought he challenged the group. And I wish it's a presentation that I wish everybody could see, because I think it really put things in perspective on, what is critical race theory, where does bias exist. I just thought it was an excellent, challenging presentation. I really enjoyed it. So,
I'll share that tomorrow.
yeah.
And what is not CRT?
Right,
Equally important, more important probably now.
probably.
But yeah, we had 3 really great speakers, and I thought a lot of inspirational speakers. Back to that one particular one, what would you think is the #1 biased group?
Group affected by bias. I've been telling people this for days.
I know the answer, so I can't.
I know, right?
It's age, like our elders, basically.
In the US.
In the U.S. We're
Specifically in the
specifically
US.
talking the U.S., which is different than many other countries around the world in terms of where they place them, how they treat them.
Right. They're least respected. They're most,
It's the group that we're all going to be a part of.
that's
Hopefully-
right. I'm
hopefully.
Or not,
no.
but I mean, hopefully.
I'm
Some
not
of us are
going there.
closer than others.
I'm gonna be 30 forever.
There you go. 2 other speakers we had, one was on no excuses.
That's right.
This gentleman was born with, what did they call it?
I don't remember its name.
It's a name this long.
Yeah, it is. It's a
Well,
big one.
bottom
He has
line,
no arms and no legs.
No arms, no legs. He was born that way. And the things that he has done throughout his life were just,
Climb Kilimanjaro.
and then there's a mountain, I never got the name of it, but the tallest one down in South America. Things he has done and overcome, and he did not let it stop him. And so, point being to not let things that seem insurmountable stop us from what we want to achieve. So, again, a very well timed, very well received message, I think, by everyone that was there. And then on Sunday, there was one, I'm not limping, that's swagger.
That's swag.
Yeah,
She was great. She was
young
great.
lady, she's now 30. She had a brain tumor when she was 5, had it removed. Life was great. She was a world-class athlete, doing this, that, and the other. Age 15, boom, it was back. And this time they did an operation. During the operation, she had a stroke. So then now the right side of her body is paralyzed. But at 15. Lost all her friends. I mean, just because, I guess they don't know what to do. She can't go out with them. You can imagine what the situation was. But she didn't let that stop her. And she pushed both physically to where, now she was walking across the stage. Obviously, she's got a limp and drag, some thing.
It's not a limp, it's swag.
Sorry, exactly. That was a lead-in for you.
Thank you.
Okay. But she went to school, magna cum laude. She
Worked for Coca-Cola.
worked for Coca-Cola, or does work for Coca-Cola, has her own
Consulting business.
consulting business now, going around doing these talks. Very entertaining, but again, very inspirational. I'll leave some room for somebody else.
So I agree, it's one of the better conferences that we've had.
Yes.
As far as the topics, the breakout sessions as well. And what I took out of it was, it was very timely for where we are right now. I wrote down, one of my comments was that, you can only control the things that you can control. Right? And all of those speakers had things that they could not control and things that they could. And I think, it's been a tough couple of years, and we can only control what we can. Failure and frustration is a part of life. Get up, keep going, keep moving ahead, doing the best we can. And then the one other thing that she said is, and really, not she, but several of them talked about your perspective is determined by the people you spend the most time with. And surround yourself by people that have that can-do attitude and will help you figure out how you can get things done, and you will get things done. So that was my motivational takeaway from the whole thing. We did, as you mentioned, recognize these two. Michelle and Wayne both achieved level 6 boardmanship, which is the highest level that you can after several hours of training over the course of, I think, 5 years, consecutive numbers of training or more, maybe more than that you have to.
And you have to pass a
continue.
test.
And a test and other things, so congratulations. I know it was on the district Facebook page the other day, but congratulations. And it was a good time, and you guys earned your recognition.
Those stripes.
It does take some time.
Yes, it does.
Anything else?
Yeah, I got a
Okay.
comment. So, so this is my first annual conference, and it was fun for me. It was educational, resourceful, but I'll tell you, one of the things that stood out to me, and I spoke to Christy about this, Dr. Epps about this a couple of different times. So those of you that know, when I'm around town, I like to wear my Fort Mill School District logo. I love my red vest, my blue vest, all of that. But I'll tell you, after this conference, I'm even more prouder to wear it. And one of the reasons why is when I had that vest on, be it if it was 10 o'clock in the evening or 3 o'clock or noon or whenever it was, the abundance of people that would migrate over to me and have a conversation about our district. I want to say to you all that this is much more before me. This is a reputation that's been around for such a long time. And I just want to say thank you to our teachers, which are the engine of our district around the U.S. And especially here in the district. Our specialty staff, our administrators, our principals. I just want to say thank you so much because that reputation was impeccable, seeing it from a 30,000-foot view and even up close and personal last week. And that's real. We can easily say that. People are upset about this or upset about that, but those of you in the public that are streaming, and if you can hear me, I can assure you that the perception of our school district is phenomenal. Now, there is some enviousness out there from other districts, but I just wanted to share that with you all. I'm even much prouder to wear that logo on my chest. Just wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you. All right, so last item before we go into executive session, superintendent's report. You've got a handful of things.
Well, before I go into my boring comments, Anthony, the secret sauce is the people, the teachers and the people in this room, and that's what makes it what it is. So thanks to them, we do enjoy a good reputation. Calendar of events. See if I can, the board meeting tonight, of course, kindergarten registrations. Peter, do we have any notion of, did you crash the system today, or did we do anything?
As of about 3 o'clock, we're hanging okay.
All right.
That's good.
But you run some numbers at the end of the time, and usually we don't have, if past history's accurate, we have about 2/3 or so that sign. Last year though, we had a bunch that signed up early, didn't we? And then, or 2 years ago, whenever we were back normal.
We did. We'll probably check by the end of the week, see how we're hanging. But it'll roll all the way up to screening on April 6th.
And just so parents know, that it's not like you got to get in there right now and.
Correct. That is true. You will not lose your spot because you didn't sign up in time. You will get a chance to schedule your screening.
Right. We anticipate having room for everybody, right?
Yes, we have to, by law. Go under a shade tree, I guess, we have to, you know. Principals meeting on the 9th, teacher workday on the 18th, and the board meeting on the 15th. In April, we have a board meeting. We have the spring break, the 11th through the 16th, and the board meeting on the 19th. What I'd like to do is, as we are beginning to open up our schools, I'd like to go back and revisit the school visits by the board members, maybe schedule, I think the one next Monday's too soon to spring on the schools, so let's not do that on March the 8th, but let me go back and.
Come on, they're ready.
Let me go back and play with some days, and maybe and if you can't come, you can't come, but it may have a couple, it won't be, it'll be more than one a month if we're gonna try to get them all in, or maybe we won't, maybe we'll look at the ones we did last and not do them, or I'll have to put my thinking cap on, but be expecting that, I'll work on that. And I won't have a chance to ask you, is the day good for everybody? We'll just, and remember what we did, and so the schools won't panic. I think we did 4. We started at 11. We finished by 1. We did a 30-minute, and it was not a dog and pony. It was whatever the principal wanted, but.
Yeah, let's just talk.
down and talk about what's going on.
Visited a few classrooms and try to make the schools close together where we can get to them in quick fashion. So anyway, gonna try to work on that. Questions about the calendar? Is there any days that I failed to mention?
I wouldn't say things you failed to mention, but just a reminder, the Gold Hill Bridge is closed this weekend.
this weekend.
So anybody that's going to be in this area, be mindful of that.
Good time to stay home.
The workday on the 18th is a workday. It is not one of the half-days. I was thinking it was a half-day, so I was glad to see this and remind myself, so I just mentioned that in case anybody else was thinking the same. April 27th is Advocacy Day at the Capitol for South Carolina School Board Association, so we'll continue to work
Come
with our
on, y'all can join
legislators.
me about the calendar.
And it's not dates to list, but just a reminder. I mean, I'm very excited. Plays are back, proms are back. There's all kinds of events happening at the schools, and so excited to see that taking place again.
Definitely.
Okay, it occurred, I've had a question, and Wayne used to always remind me about this, the next piece, the enrollment update, the attendance. It is confusing on the agenda, and that's my fault. We oftentimes we list attendance update, and we may list enrollment. What it is, what I'm talking about, we look at enrollment, but it's not we don't look at it, we look at it in total numbers. The attendance part is teacher attendance, not student attendance. And I think some people get confused, and I see why they do. So let me just clear that up before I jump in here. Enrollment, we gained 24 students. I think we had to make a change on the first one.
Yeah, there was 2 missing from Blank's trial, but there's an additional 2.
Okay, so it's 24 new students since the January report, so we're up to 17,830.
That's net new,
That's-
just for everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Not-
that's
not-
right.
not
We added a
actual
classroom
numbers.
last month.
That's
Out of
right.
the classroom at
Y'all keep me in my lane now. You're right, I confuse you even more. But now we're getting back to that typical monthly gain that we normally experience. Then the monthly teacher attendance winners for October, wait a minute, February, okay, I'm reading then October was on, are the numbers right, you think? Okay.
You tell me, Al.
Nation Forward High with an attendance rate, teacher attendance rate of 94.6, is that right?
Close
Seven,
enough.
seven,
94 point something.
Springfield Middle with an average rate of 94.5.
Yep.
And River Trail Elementary with an attendance rate of 95.5. So that's teacher attendance, which is amazing during the times we're going through. So that's the enrollment / attendance / teacher attendance update. Report. And I don't have anything else.
I was looking at my list to see if I had anything else that we were going to talk about. I don't think so. All right, we are in need of an executive session to receive personnel recommendations and to discuss legal issues. Could I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
All right, we're in.